Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're gonna delve into something quite different, and that is werewolves. And I don't mean we're going to look at actual werewolves. Let's separate fact from fiction, shall we? Heed the words of the ancient gypsy. Even a man who is pure in heart says his prayers by night, may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Poetic, isn't it? It's a verse that's been repeated by multiple characters, but 1941, the movie Wolfman, that's what you probably remember it from. I mean, it is the most memorable piece of dialogue in the film, if not all werewolf cinema. That was screenwriter Kurt Siodmak. He didn't exactly have to comb through dozens of ancient manuscripts or interview surviving gypsy descendants to obtain this bit of verse. He simply made it up. Most of what the average person knows about werewolves, it's a result of Siodmak's efforts, right down to the idea that a human changes into a creature that looks a lot more like a hairy person than a wolf. That a film provides a classic werewolf for pop culture is not surprising. There's no furry equivalent of Dracula by Bram Stoker in the world of lycanthropy literature. Count Dracula, the character was able to change into a wolf among other forms, but that doesn't count. Until recent years, novels had little to do with the popularity of werewolves. Even though he didn't have a classic work of literary fiction to inspire him, Siodmak should have done a little more digging into non-fiction or folklore. Turns out that the real werewolf legends they're a lot richer than anything Hollywood has managed to capture. I mean, werewolves of folklore, well, they were rarely described as looking anything like men or women, with fur popping out of the neckline. Most of the eyewitnesses reported seeing, well, wolves. It seems the very first lycanthropic film, a lost 18-minute short from 1913, the werewolf had that right. According to reports, the film featured a Navajo woman who gets involved with mysticism and transforms fully into a wolf, a real wolf. Sadly, a fire in 1924 destroyed all existing copies, perhaps altering forever the future of werewolf cinema. Filmmakers who came after would avoid trying such a folkloric take on lycanthropy for several decades. Getting real wolves to behave on set, well, it was difficult. The CGI has made that not an issue, I guess. You know, Twilight Saga. Just look at that. Look at the lycanthropes there and how they change and how enormous. Yet, I mean, otherwise, they just look like natural wolves, don't they? Maybe larger, yeah. But they still look like natural wolves. Occasionally, the lycanthropes of folklore, they were just sort of rather large wolves, as in the case of the beasts of Gévaudan, which probably should have been called the beasts of Gévaudan, plural, not just a beast. From 1764 to 1767, giant wolf creatures terrorised the French countryside, from which they got their name. At least 2 of the beasts were killed, put on public display. We obviously have no photographs of these things, only crude drawings, with questionable handling of perspective and scale. These artists didn't benefit from modern police sketch training. Crude or not, the most famous drawing clearly shows a wolf-like beast standing on all fours. Some eyewitnesses reported a beast that could walk either on all fours or upright, but most only made it sound like a standard wolf, in stance if not in size. Accounts from the era all seem to agree that these beasts seemed far too large to be just ordinary wolves. We'll have more to say later. But one other key point needs to be brought up. No one, not one single person, ever witnessed a man turning into any of those beasts. Only toward the end of their reign of terror did the beasts start to generate more mysterious sightings which bordered on hysteria. For instance, strange men with furry hands, but no reported wolf snouts, were spotted, trying to lure female travellers into the woods. Of course, for a region being plagued by wolf terror, it's not hard to imagine the people seeing monsters everywhere. For the most part, werewolf cases seem very much like wolf infestation cases. A sceptical reader would be justified in jumping in the right about now and asking, maybe there were nothing more than wolf infestations? Despite their bad reputation in movies and fiction, wolves are not bloodthirsty monsters. They usually run in, well, quasi-civilized packs that seem to coexist and act in harmony, as if they possess an almost psychic group mind. A typical pack has complete respect for its alpha male or leader, and thereby does what the alpha feels the pack needs to do to survive. And when a subordinate wolf becomes overly aggressive and goes against the pack, this is usually its way of announcing its challenge for the alpha position. This could end up in a violent takedown of the aggressive wolf or a change in leadership. Most wolves, current and ancient, keep away from villagers. They rarely sneak into children's rooms and carry them off in the middle of the night. Still, it's hard to ignore the overwhelming lack of eyewitnesses in werewolf cases who actually reported seeing humans going through the throes of transformation, rather than people claiming to see their neighbours turning into werewolves. It was the werewolves themselves who usually claimed to do the changing. Yep, you read that right. Unlike vampires and ghosts, werewolves have testified on their own behalf, effectively against themselves, and have actually admitted being monsters in court. Some of these accounts you'll read about supernatural cases, I suppose, in official courtrooms, where we bring in the witch and there's an inquisition, investigations, and the accused will confess, maybe after a few rounds of torture. You know how it goes by now, surely. I can hear the skeptics, pointing out the obvious fact that people will confess to being the devil himself if the right number of hot iron brands are being pressed against their body. I say to those skeptics, read on. I'm a skeptic too. Being a true skeptic means having an open mind. When I look over the oldest surviving records of a werewolf testimony, I can't ignore a few peculiarities that stick out, especially when these accounts are considered in groups. They're not isolated events. They're not one-off. They are numerous with multiple people. That makes it interesting, don't you think? Whether you believe or not, we're going to delve into the history of werewolves, and we're going to look at it from fact and fiction. We're going to take away the mess that Hollywood's placed in there, the mess that films are put in there. We're going to look at cases, and by the time we are done, come to your own conclusion. Doesn't matter, it's folklore, right? If it's folklore, it's not real. Many blessings.